Welcome to Joy of the Hang. We're your hosts, Sharon Stevenson and Lauren Rowe. Thanks for joining us for another episode filled with meaningful stories, honest conversations, and maybe even a few laughs. Every Wednesday, we invite you to hang with us as we chat with incredible guests who open up about life's messy, magical journey, sharing insights, struggles, triumphs, and everything in between. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts so you never miss a moment. And if you love what we're doing, tell a friend, post about it, or just shout it from the rooftops. Go on, spread the joy. Okay. Where are my Downton Abbey fans? On today's episode, we have our very own Mr. Carson, who many of you may remember as the lovable Butler on the hugely popular series Downton Abbey. Our guest today is the American version, also known as the modern-day Butler, Donnie Martens. And he is here today with his beautiful wife, Colleen, to share his passion for hospitality and what it was like to serve as the personal butler to Vice Presidents Dick Cheney and Joe Biden. Welcome, Donnie and Colleen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Wow.
Right? I know. Welcome.
I already have tears in my eyes.
I guess we'll have to wait to ask some questions to see if he is lovable. Or, I mean, maybe he's the big, bad, naughty, mean butler.
When I first met him, I could already tell he was lovable and huggable, and I can see why Colleen's been with him. How long have you been together?
We've been together for over 20 years.
For 20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's been my butler behind the scenes, you know. So
This is true.
it's amazing, you know, marriage through, you know, private service and taking care of people. You know, you typically focus on that family, but she's been the rock to allow me to pursue that dream of taking care of families. So definitely want to highlight that part.
I love that you recognize
well.
that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, and I love how you mentioned that was a dream, because Sharon has kids, I have kids, you have been blessed with 5 kids. So I'm curious, you know, let's sort of back it up and start from the beginning. How does that become a dream to, you know, be at service for other families?
Yeah. So it initially started out as just serving in the military. So I just joined the Navy when I was 18. Left for boot camp. My first duty station was in Washington, D.C., so huge culture shock because I grew up in Louisiana, kind of that backwoods country kid. And when I got to Washington, D.C., and, you know, got, introduced to city life and different things, it was just a total shock. And so I had this opportunity to get a side job, and that side job was working at the mall because that's where all the good-looking girls typically hang out. And so I got a second job at the Pentagon City Mall with Abercrombie and Fitch. And
that's so funny because we do not have you on film, but of course that's where you worked, because all of us know that they have a very, very particular look that they go for with men and women. Yes. So it makes a lot of sense. You're 6'4", correct? You know, lean in shape, good looking, served in the military. So it makes sense.
Yeah. So it was quite funny. You know, 3 of my buddies and I, we walked in, we got hired on the spot, and, you know, started folding T-shirts and taking care of all the retail portions of Abercrombie and Fitch. And, you know, around the corner comes this little, you know, 5'2", cute blonde with this mini skirt. And I'm like, man, she is hot. And you know, lo and behold, you know, let's just say 20 years later, we're still going strong. So
so that was Colleen.
That was me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. Yeah.
That was me. I was wearing those furry Steve Madden boots. Do you remember those things that look like you killed a polar bear and put it on your feet? I was wearing that with the mini skirt. It was completely an Abercrombie
Colleen, full disclosure, I still wear boots like that.
I support that. I need a new pair.
So
I think you do.
worn. So you worked together.
We did. That's where we met. Yep.
So we met Abercrombie and Fitch. So that was 2004.
Yes.
Fall time frame of 2004, and we got married May of 2005. So it moved pretty quickly, but it moved at the speed of hey, I'm pregnant. And so that's how our relationship progressed quickly. Is, you know, we were just 2 kids having fun, and then you get dealt the cards of life and the choices that you make, and, you know, so we had to navigate through that. And Like, hey.
Which I appreciate, but also, I have very good friends that I want to make a point of saying had a similar situation, and we always looked at it, and they've been now married 26 years. They have 3 kids, and they just got married sooner because of the pregnancy. They were destined to get married anyway, so they just got married sooner.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's what actually we had felt. We talked about after knowing each other and dating for just a couple of months that we did have life goals together. And then we found out a couple weeks later we were already pregnant. So we thought, okay, I guess we're moving this forward quicker than we had anticipated. But when you know,
Yep. I'm glad we made that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, gosh, I don't know where to go from here, but other than we got married. That was that first duty station. So that one, I was with the honor guard. So these are the guys and girls that take care of the funerals at Arlington National Cemetery. So, we were dealing with death every day, burying elderly folks, burying guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So as you can imagine, we were dealing with, just the grim reality of life on a consistent basis. And so I could come home and have this bright, bubbly personality. And so there was a worlds of opposite that I was dealing with at that time. I was just like, man, I love coming home and having someone that's got my back, someone that's got, is taking care of the home, creating that space. And coming from a single mother household, that was comfort to me. And I was like, okay, if I can establish that, if I can just be hospitality minded. I think Will Guidara just recently came out with a book, Unreasonable Hospitality. How can I make my little world magical? How can I inflict some sort of joy or some sort of encouragement into the world by serving them? And so that's just became my mission, even at that first duty station, and ultimately to serving the vice president.
So when you were in the honor guard, is that a position you chose, or how do you get chosen to be part of the honor guard?
So the honor guard choice was a selection process that they held in boot camp. They had a couple of representatives come to boot camp, and they have some criteria that they work through, and eventually you get selected. There is a selection process, and then they go through a training process. So there is quite a process for the honor guard, and each service is different, but for the most part, it's primarily the same. They have a certain look, they have a certain aptitude that they're really looking for, and you go there and you go through another boot camp per se to ensure that you can stand still for hours at a time and not pass out or fall over. But then you also have the mental acuity to speak with generals and admirals, and you're passing a flag off to the next of kin. Are you able to mentally get through that process honorably? You're a representative of the Navy to that family. Are you able to pass it off with honor and dignity and not be a mess? And so there's a lot of that, I guess, psychological training, because oftentimes...
I could imagine that. I mean, as someone who has never served in the military, my father was in the Navy after law school, but I've always been enamored by the psychological side of it, not necessarily the physical side of it.
Right.
It blows everyone's minds, but just the mental side that to me is what truly separates people like you from normal people like Sharon and me.
Yeah, it was quite the process. We're at that time we were just a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids, and now we're being presented. Our service was a little bit different than those that were in war, but it's still the same, I suppose. We're giving the flag to a 12-year-old little girl that just lost her dad. That plays tricks on you when you yourself have little kids back home, and so just seeing the maturity factor, and so like any veteran, you start compartmentalizing that, and then you build up walls in relationships to ensure that you're protecting yourself, but also trying to protect those around you from those conversations. And then you come to a point where those walls eventually have to come down to love more, love deeper, love better, because you can't continue having relationships with all these walls in your life. And so...
Absolutely. Could not agree with that more. I mean, I always behaved in relationships like someone who had been wronged or, dumped by a lover, and I wasn't, and luckily realized that to really have a great relationship and find true love, you need to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you have walls set up in any capacity, you will never be able to find a true, loving relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So how long did you serve in the Honor Guard?
So the Honor Guard position was about 2.5 years, and then that's when I progressed onto my job, my schooling. So I joined the Navy to be a cook. So that was foremost the responsibility that the Navy gave me. Once you finish this Honor Guard thing, then you need to go do your schooling. So I went to this culinary school, graduated top of my class, and before I left the Honor Guard, I did make a...
Is that a special culinary school within the Navy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, they're teaching you how to read recipe cards, how to make portions for 500 to 1,000, because the Navy's goal for me would have been to cook on a ship, serve 5,000 sailors on an aircraft carrier, or whatever the case is. So their culinary class is basic, but it is still really intense. There's a lot of math involved, and then, the leadership aspect of it as well. So when I left or was preparing to leave Washington, D.C. from the Honor Guard and go to culinary school, I made an introduction to a colleague. And she said, Donnie, when you go to culinary school, if you can graduate top of your class, we can have a conversation about bringing you back to D.C. and, potentially work for the vice president or the White House. You've got, you have the background clearance and everything that you need. But you just need to graduate top of your class. And
what does that mean?
No
like,
pressure.
tell those of us that don't, like, how do you, it might seem obvious to you, but how do you perform to get to be at the top of your class when you're in culinary school in the Navy?
You show up on time, show up with, a uniform that is worthy of wearing, taking care of your uniform. You're completing your task with above average proficiency. You are encouraging others. So I think a lot of those metrics go into selecting top of class candidates. Not only can you cook, but can you encourage others on how to improve their cooking skills? Are you showing up on time? Are you encouraging others to show up on time? So they are, I think their metrics were based around that, the leadership aspect as well. I think that was a part of it. I don't know entirely how I got selected, other than...
Well, it seems like you have to be very team-oriented as well. They're not looking for the big kahuna or the chief, but someone who can do their job really well and really interact with other people and get along with them.
Yeah, and so, that's the military. Military is a team sport. We, want everyone to enjoy working together because we all have to have each other's back at some point. And so, through that, they do have those leadership modules. They do have the exercises to encourage you to improve on ensuring that your teammate is taken care of before yourself. And so maybe that in of itself intertwined another thread into my hospitality background or desire. And so, I got selected, and luck, maybe, I don't know. But when they
it's amazing how lucky you get when you work really, really hard, Donnie.
Right.
Yeah, it is. That is quite the mantra to live by. Luck does happen every day when you put yourself in those positions and take those opportunities and those steps forward. So, some people call it lucky. Maybe, I was being proficient.
But take us through that interview process. Aren't you so intrigued, Sharon? Like, how does that, before you get a job at the White House, serving a VP. What's that interview?
Well, before he goes on to that, hold on a second. So I just wanted to mention my stepfather was also a cook in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
And my brother was an officer in the Navy who served on submarines. So he's a 23-year retired Navy. Yeah, now he works in civil service, which he finds very difficult compared to being in the Navy. But back to your question, how does one become an enlisted aide to the Vice President of the United States? And I can't wait because I know you worked under Cheney and Biden, so I want to hear the difference.
So I'll try to get through it as quickly as I can.
I know, there's so much.
My introduction to the individual prior to leaving D.C., she already worked there, so I guess I had a connection, you could say. But I had orders to a ship. I had orders to Norfolk, Virginia. We went down there. We looked at apartments.
Having a connection is a good thing. We all need those. Networking is important.
Yes.
One, if you try to live this life siloed off, walls, you try to do this thing alone, like you realize that you can't. And so my encouragement to anyone out there listening would be, make yourself available, make yourself vulnerable, have those conversations, tell people your goals. You never know who they might know. And so we're all probably one or two connections away from dream job, dream relationship, dream friendship.
You guys have 5 kids. I have 3. Sharon has kids as well. And I would always say to my kids to that note, be an idiot on your own time. When you're around one of your friends, your roommates, parents, be on your A game because you don't know who's going to help you get a job, who's going to have, a daughter that you might want to marry, whatever it is. Like you just don't, you have to, I love how you say that because you just don't know who's going to help you out, who's going to be your connection.
Yep. And so to that point, this lady's name is Sarah. She, was that initial connection. I graduated top of the class, and weirdly enough, I had the orders to a boat in Norfolk, Virginia, and I kept trying to call Sarah. And I was, I think we use the term now. She was ghosting me. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doomed for regular Navy. And I think it was probably a solid week after I graduated. So if you're calling someone, you're being persistent, and it's a week. You're like, man, this is not good. Stressful. We had an apartment. We signed on it. And next thing you know, I get this random phone call from a blocked DC number. And she said, hey, this is Sarah. We're canceling your orders. Come back to D.C. And I was like, what does this mean? So now everything is we're pivoting again. And so we go back to D.C. My background clearance goes through. And for those that know, the military background checks are always thorough and persistent, and so questions. We had people showing up at our house just asking additional questions. So I cleared.
So clearly, Colleen passed as well.
Yes, she has no.
I charmed them
Good
with
for
my
you.
smile.
I'm guessing that you had to have a pretty clean background as
she
well.
Does.
We all did.
No skeletons in the closet. Nothing surprising even after we were married, and so that was good to know. And I got back. Went to the interview process with the Cheneys, interviewed with Mrs. Cheney and some additional staff members during that time frame, and they liked me, and I got lucky, I guess.
Can you tell them how old you were when you interviewed with Lynn Cheney?
I was 19?
No.
20?
I think you were 21.
21. So the youngest guy at this point that I know of to be enrolled into this program serving the vice presidents.
Can I interrupt one question? Mm-hmm. Did they, every time there's a new vice president, do they hire a new staff, or what had happened to the butler that was there before you?
So I worked with staff that was brought, that was with the Cheneys, because I came in, 2007, so they were on the downslide of their administration. But there were guys that had worked with, the Gores previously, so there's a lot of carryover.
Okay.
So a fully staffed team, I think, if I'm correct, a fully staffed team for them, for the Naval Enlisted Aides, is probably 12.
It was 12.
Wow.
At our lowest point, we got down to 4. So if you are any sort of staffing or any sort of HR representative, you know that if you need 12 people and you only got 4, it becomes really tense. So that was part of our story, being into this program, serving, and then your numbers start dwindling down. You get down to 4 people. You're pretty busy, and so, but yeah, I got selected.
So what would a typical day?
Yeah, what are the hours like?
Yeah, tell us. So walk us through what a typical.
So when I was with the vice president's
Start with Cheney, because I'm sure they were different.
So with Cheney, we worked in 2 shifts. If the vice president, so there's a different avenues that we could go with this conversation. But when the vice president was in town in D.C. and he was just going to the office down to the White House to work, we served at the official residence, which is the Naval Observatory on Massachusetts Avenue. And we would report there 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever time that they wanted their coffee. And that was typically pretty regimented. So we had our own little Starbucks machine down in the basement, brew the coffee, grab the classified materials from those that needed to give classified material to the vice president, and we would walk upstairs to their...
I never even thought of that. I mean, I was thinking that coffee, yes, I had that in my mind, but so you're actually carrying like secret documents at the same time, and which... It makes sense for why they would pick someone with your background and the military and the clearances. It just never occurred to me. I guess it's obvious, but the coffee seemed very obvious. But
it's not obvious because I didn't even know that's what he did for years. He'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning, kiss me goodbye, and he'd leave and go about his day. And when he'd come home, I really wouldn't know what he did except for say, it was good. And that was it. There was nothing.
Yeah. Well, you knew he was serving coffee.
Yeah. I knew he was serving coffee and running a bunch of errands, but I didn't know to the extent.
Yeah. So my normal day, if I was working the morning shift, would be, kiss her goodbye, drive my 35, 40 minutes into work, go through all the checkpoints that you could probably imagine. And then once you get into the residence, it's, brewing your coffee, walking upstairs, delivering any sort of newspapers, any sort of classified material, and just checking in. We typically would drop off the coffee if the vice president needed assistance cooking breakfast. Oftentimes they would, Vice President Cheney would do eggs and bacon or eggs and sausage. And he would take care of that himself. And so oftentimes you'd walk upstairs and there's the vice president.
He'd be making his own eggs?
Making his own breakfast.
Okay.
And they have like a small little galley-style kitchen up on their private residence or private floor. And, he's with his bed head and bathrobe and morning, sir, morning. And
did he bring breakfast in bed to his wife? That's what I want to know. How much of a gentleman was he, really?
There was oftentimes we would find evidence that breakfast was enjoyed in or near the bed.
Good.
Maybe in the beginning of their administration.
Yeah.
Probably not towards the end.
So when I came in 2007, it was... the latter part of their administration. So again, the normal day would be he was going to the White House. So take care of the breakfast. We would try to clean the main floor, which would be the ground floor. We'd clean it quietly. So this would be like Swiffer dusting, just wiping down stuff. So just kind of a light cleaning. And then he was coming downstairs anywhere from 7 to 7:30. To either receive additional briefing or getting to the limousine to go to the White House. And so that, with Vice President Cheney, that was clockwork. His morning routines were very scheduled, very routine. We knew what he was doing by his daily schedules, and he didn't deviate very much from that.
How many people lived in their residence then? Was it just he and Lynn?
Just he and Lynn.
Just the two?
Yeah.
No children or pets?
The grandkids would come every once in a while, but oftentimes it was just the two of them.
Yeah, their daughters were grown, and they were living in the area, McLean area of Virginia, but
Liz and Mary,
not at the residence.
And I think Liz was part of politics during that time frame. Mary and they would come over with the grandkids, not often, but, they would visit a few times throughout the year.
Did the grandkids ever ask you for things?
Oh yeah, all the time. And so, that's the nature of that position is, you're just trying to take care. Yes, you are in charge of ensuring that the vice president's taken care of, but let's face it, you got to take care of the entire family if they're in residence or any guest. And so we would have, again, maybe I should go back to the daily routines, but once he would leave, then we would do more of the deep cleaning or the vacuuming, the loud noise type stuff. And then Mrs. Cheney, she would go for her errands, or she would be working on a book, and we would know where she was at up on the private floor. And we weren't allowed to go up to the private floor until she was ready, and that was a predisposed or predetermined time frame. Mm-hmm. And so once that time frame hit, we would go up and announce ourselves, and then we would clean the private floors. So that would be, cleaning out the bathrooms, making the bed, ironing sheets, anything that they have already established as their norm, we would go up there and take care of that for them. And we would try to do it as quickly as possible. Again, she's writing a book, she's doing her meetings.
How do you learn to do those other things, though? Because, you went to culinary school in the Navy, but as...
To do what other things? Clean the house?
Yes, because as a almost 54-year-old wife and mother of three, I still struggle to, make a bed, I cannot, even if $1 million were on the line, fold a bottom sheet.
They do have YouTube videos now you can watch.
So I'm being very serious. How do you learn how to appropriately, were there instructions to learn how to appropriately clean or
how to fold a fitted sheet?
And to iron them too.
What's funny is people do it differently. So you would have, one expectation could be completely different based on the client. So it was training, lots of conversations with my teammates that were there that had served the family. And so,
maybe after this, you can give me a number. My husband might like if
we need a separate podcast.
I could get some training.
Housekeeping 101.
Housekeeping 101. We'll have Donnie back.
It was a lot of training and a lot of tribal knowledge. The guys did a great job documenting everything, but again, you don't know what you don't know. And so I appreciate the silliness of the question, but again, is it important that we focus on this particular portion of the bathroom? Yes, because things happen and we have to make sure that it's always clean. And so you develop an eye for it. You develop a knack for just seeing things, and then this pursuit of excellence, from my time at the Honor Guard, ensuring that our uniforms was great, ensuring that we're representing the Navy in a kind of a perfect way, I suppose. And so now serving the vice president, this pursuit of, the first floor is museum ready at all time. And then their private floor is cleaned and prepared to a level of excellence that, Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, some of the higher end hotels that I had only heard about, oh my goodness, this is people's standard of operating procedures of hey, we need this thing done, crisp, clean edges. And now I'm taking all of that and I'm coming home.
I was just going to ask that question. How does that work when you get home?
I'll let Colleen describe that.
Colleen, I did not iron the bed linens. Yeah. I didn't even know how to fold a fitted sheet either, Lauren, so don't feel bad. Yeah. I was in survival mode at home. We had toddlers, little boys, so we had
the 3 little boys, maybe 2 little boys during this time frame. Mm-hmm. And so I was taking this motivation, this pursuit of excellence. And, I'm working with these high-level professionals, and I come home, and what have you done?
If I could show you pictures.
Yes.
It looks like a train wreck. He would come home, and I would look like a dog vomited on me, and my hair is a mess. Yeah. And I'm like, hi, dear. Lovely to see you, too. And he'd give me this look of WTF just happened here.
However, your boys were alive.
They were. That's exactly what I said.
And healthy.
Yes.
I didn't
said,
see that.
Nobody died, nobody's bleeding, and the house didn't burn down. Hallelujah. It's a great day. Yeah. But he came home with these expectations of, well, if I'm doing this at the residence, can't you do this here? Surely you've got time on your hands. And then hence the eye roll and the serious attitude of, are you kidding me?
How did you work through that?
I'm
hoping communication.
Yes.
Communication, but not at that time. We were too young and immature to even realize what that was like. And we both come from broken families whose marriages didn't survive. So we didn't really have that example before us
the toolbox
of how to communicate with each other, especially because we were still so young, in our early 20s.
But give a little insight to that, because you're still married after all these years, 5 kids, so you had more kids.
Yeah,
we did.
So I think this is very important, because I think this is very normal. It, happens a lot. I used to go on a girls' trip, and I'd come home and, look at my husband and think, what did you do all weekend? Because he dealt with the home differently than I did as a stay-at-home mom. So give us some insight, because I think this is so important and great. And
So what we had discussed was that there were silent expectations that weren't voiced, and that was a huge problem. And something that we were determined to do was to make our marriage work and show our kids, our young boys, because everything is caught, not always taught. We wanted them to see us.
Oh, wait.
we love, Sharon and I love these. Hold on, time out.
Wait a minute. I need to write that one down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are caught, not always taught.
Absolutely. Especially when you have your children looking up to you, you can tell them one thing, but when they see you doing another, does your walk match your talk? And so for us, it was really, important that our children catch us being endearingly loving to each other and embracing each other, and whatever issues we were having, we were going to take and handle behind closed doors while they were watching a show or something, so that we could actually talk about them. And he and I have never, ever had, we're just not the types of personality to have a blow up fist. We don't do that. We just don't fight. We may have vehement disagreements and we may get passionate about some things, but we've always had this physical attraction to each other in this way to communicate to each other. Okay, these are silent expectations. Thank you for sharing them with me. These are areas that I can do better in. Another thing at the time was that book by Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, had already been out. And somebody from a church we had gone to at the time recommended we really look into that. So after further reading, we got to figure out what each other's love languages were. Well, I had learned at the time that his was acts of service. That wasn't mine. So I didn't even think, oh, you do this all day, you'd like to come home to this. So once we had more of those conversations, and it took a lot of, I forgive you, I love you, and we're burying it and we're not bringing it back up again. The more salt that you pour into a wound, it's never going to be solved. And so we were bound and determined that we were going to find a way to work through our problems and then be able to share that with our kids. And the way that we raised our kids was the same way. You're going to forgive people. It may hurt, but you need to show forgiveness. Jesus forgave us. We're going to forgive others. You need to love, and for us, that was really how we were able to raise our children. That and the fact that discipline and then respect were huge in our household. And so he grew up in Louisiana, where they called everybody sir and ma'am. I grew up in Washington, D.C. You didn't talk to people. We were like from 2 separate parts of the globe, but one thing that we had decided together was that we wanted our boys from a very young stage to respond to adults, to look them in the eye and say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am, no, thank you. And so for us, it wasn't only teaching them love and forgiveness, but then also making sure that we were in line and this is how we're going to act, because when we're out in public, we're not going to be hellions. But that all took training behind closed doors, but it wouldn't have been effective if we were constantly shouting and arguing and bickering at each other. So it took a lot of those conversations.
It took a solid,
it was years.
13 to 15
It was 13 years
and
of this to figure it out.
If you're still newly married, just know that it just continues to take the work of conversing and talking about these things. And we've kind of coined or heard this analogy, honest, open, and transparent. You're having hot conversations, and that might be a little spicy, but, just being honest, open, and transparent.
That one too.
I like that.
So, if you're not to that point yet, my encouragement to you would be to try to get there with your spouse, to have honest, open, and transparent conversations.
I like also how you talked about we have different love languages, because I've joked, but it's not really a joke, that I've talked with my girlfriends before, and they just keep mentioning to me that their husband should know, how much they love them, because he gets in bed every night to a perfectly, made bed, and the pillows set up perfectly. And I joke, and I don't want to be naughty sitting across from the two of you, but I've sort of said I can think of another way that something he might appreciate more than getting into
absolutely
a made bed at night.
And that was probably your girlfriend's love language was acts of service, because she's taking the time to do all of these things.
Right.
It fills her cup.
Right.
Correct.
But her husband gives two craps.
Right.
So
physical touch.
Yes. And so at the time, mine was quality time and words of affirmation. So if you're coming home and you're already disappointed with me because of the house, then we're not equally yoked.
And then I'm shut down because the house is not cleaned.
Yeah.
So now I'm not even responding to you with language because I'm taking a nap or I'm exhausted or you don't understand what I just went through today. And so I was.
Whereas when you communicate, then you respond to each other really well. I mean, when my husband fills up the dishes in the dishwasher and runs it fast, I'm like,
that gets you hot.
And then empties it and puts it away. I am like, honey.
Yes.
That's
honey.
sexy. So funny.
I know. Thank you.
I will be honest and tell you that there were a couple times after these conversations where I'm like, oh, you want a clean house? Okay, fine. So he'd come home after a long day, be exhausted, and fall asleep on the couch. And here I am still making dinner, raising kids. So I felt like it was the opportune time to turn the vacuum on and run it in front of his face. You want a clean house, jerk face? Here's the clean house. Very passive aggressive because we were so mature.
Yeah.
I love it, though.
We worked through it,
the communication at the end of the day. My father was a divorce lawyer for 40 years, more than 40 years. And the number one thing he would always say is communication. And communication isn't sitting down and talking about Timmy's, math and Sean's t-ball game. It's really talking about what you guys have mentioned. And I love this. I'm glad this came up because it's such a great thing.
The term silent expectations is so important because, think of it. We can't be mind readers.
No.
Like you said, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, by the way, because I'm on my second marriage and everyone comes to a relationship with a past and baggage.
Absolutely.
And whatever that is, right? And so I might think, oh, well, this worked before or this didn't work before and this is what I expect now.
Right.
But it's not how it worked for him, right? So it's really important to have that.
And it works with friends too. I've said to girlfriends of mine, look, I've got lots of talents, but mind reading isn't one of them. So if I've done something, tell me, give me the benefit of the doubt so I can apologize, do better.
Absolutely.
Right.
But other than vacuuming by his head while he was sleeping, curious, how did you come to a middle ground where he was able to get his needs met and you were able to get your? You were able to say to him, like, it's hard raising young children.
It is hard. I had no choice but to teach my kids how to do these things too. I'm not going to be the maid or the housekeeper by myself. And if I have three little,
shouldn't be.
No, exactly. And if I have three little boys making messes, I don't care how old you are. You can learn how to unload a dishwasher. You can learn how to take a paper towel and some spray and go wipe something down and clean up after yourself. So we had to start that from a young age. There are a lot of women out there in the world right now, or not a lot. I mean, you said you have, is it 3 boys and 2 girls? We have 3 boys and then 2 girls.
So there are 3 women out there who are going to be very thankful that you taught your sons that.
Right. Well, that was just it. We had friends who, older than us, but, their kids were going off to college and their sons are bringing home laundry to do laundry. And I'm like, I'm sorry, baby, mommy's not doing your laundry when you're a teenager. You can figure out how to cook yourself some ramen. You can boil water. And that's just it. We've met people in life who are our own age and the husband doesn't know how to boil water. And I'm like, are you kidding? But again, we weren't judging, but we didn't want that for our children.
Yeah.
Right.
Period.
We just wanted something different. Like Colleen said earlier, we came from broken homes. What can we do to improve our family's legacy? And it just came through, we're still working on it, guys. So 20 years of marriage, and we're still having conversations about how to improve this thing called marriage and trying to make it last, for ourselves ultimately, but also for our kids and future grandkids. So
this is so important. It's such an important story to tell because unfortunately I feel that there are a lot of especially young women, I will say more so than men, who have this idea in their head of marriage and I've been very fortunate to have a very easy marriage, and I've been married 26 years, but like anything, you have to show up.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It takes work. I mean, Sharon and I both are avid about staying healthy and going to the gym. You can't go to the gym one day a week and eat like crap and be in shape. So why people think a marriage is going to run itself without putting in any work or showing up is crazy.
You're exactly right. It takes two. It takes two. Communication, emotion is very essential to have a life-giving marriage or any long-term relationship at that point. So,
and like you said earlier, Sharon, like we came in, even though we were young, we still had a past, and so all that got brought into it. Broken marriages, of our parents, all that, all these weird expectations, silent expectations, and it just takes the time and the effort of putting in the effort, showing up every day, going to the gym, and for us, our marriage was just having those. Coming to the realization of like, okay, I've got 3 little kids. My house is not going to be museum ready like my work is. So casting that expectation on her is unrealistic and it's unfair. I now have to deal with that. Okay, I'm sorry. So there's that exchange there of realizing what I was doing. She, maybe forgave me or didn't forgive me in those moments. But then it's just, once that conversation is had, then it's different conversations and better conversations and deeper conversations.
And we talked about that. We said down the road, there will be a place in time and a season where we can live in a museum. But that is not while we're raising our kids. I want us to be the house where the kids want to bring their friends over, where it's fun, but it's safe. And that was just it. I remember growing up, I never wanted to have my friends over to my house. I always wanted to be at somebody else's house because I was embarrassed for whatever reason, and it wasn't a fun place. So we were bound and determined to say, okay, what are the unrealistic expectations? What can we break? And what can we just keep relevant? Because I want our kids to have our house be the place. And that's where we are today,
and
too.
I will say, how old are your kids now?
20 down to 10.
So you kind of know part of this, but I will say both of my children now are grown and gone, and I miss the mess.
Yes, exactly.
I'd rather have the mess in this house and know that life is happening and joy is happening than have the museum.
That is the season I'm currently walking through. It's the emotions of realizing our oldest very soon is going to be buying his first house and moving out. And while I'm so proud of him and I'm so excited, I'm facing the emotional reality of these kids that all I ever wanted them to be was older and grown up, because I was tired of the toddler phase and tired of the screaming and whining. And now we're here, and I feel like I blinked and it's gone. And that's the hardest thing to work through. So I get that. Like I'm on a whole new scale right now.
Because I want to tell all young parents too, I know it's hard as you're going through it, but embrace it, because when it's gone, you're
1,000%.
You want it back.
You can't get it back.
You can't get it back.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, be in the moment. So let's talk about Joe Biden.
Oh, goodness. No, I'm joking.
Okay, so
I'll
Dick
take
Cheney,
that out.
I know when we first met, you said they were very different households to manage.
Yes. So
maybe you can talk
when the administration changed in 2009, so this kind of goes back to this idea that you asked about earlier, are there any sort of carryover? And, the political staff might change, but the military folks are there to serve the title or the seat. So it doesn't matter who is there. The military, we try to be apolitical, if that makes sense. You're there to serve a mission, to serve a purpose, and try to do it to the best of your ability. So when the administration changed, we went from like a very scheduled, routined last portion of an 8-year term, and now we're on to this new thing. And so we are going around, we're saying thank yous, we're, hey, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, we're
internationally
going,
as well.
Yeah, we're going all over to just say, thank you to everyone involved during that election process. And so I went from a very routine, predictable schedule, I would say, to kind of a chaotic schedule. And then once the administration kind of got in their own routine, then that's when the differences of the household start becoming apparent. And again, no judgment, I suppose, but it was just different. So like I said earlier, Vice President Cheney, you could set your watch, you could set your calendar to his movements. They didn't deviate at all. When Vice President Biden came in, there were some variations there with the schedule. And so that might mean you're leaving 2 hours later than what was on the schedule, or you might be leaving 30 minutes before that's on the schedule. And so, when you're trying to take care of a principal like that, it becomes very hard to predict and assume, and making sure that you're in the right spot at the right time to take care of your principal. And this goes not only for myself as a naval enlisted aide, but also for the Secret Service guys, for all the guys that are driving the motorcycles in front of the motorcade. So you can see that one person's decisions really affect that pool of people that support this individual.
But now I'm intrigued. Since you served, under Cheney and then Biden and mentioned such a difference, is it more the norm for people to behave so regimented and scheduled the way Cheney did? Is it, more rare to have a vice president come in like Biden did, who, is a little more chaotic and less tied to a schedule?
Yeah, so I think those that serve those principles are probably really regimented. So you're thinking of cops, Secret Service, military professionals. So we all have this, maybe, again, silent expectation that our principal will be somewhat routine or regimented. And so when those expectations don't match, or maybe there was some carryover from the Secret Service.
But I'm curious, if you tallied the past 10 vice presidents,
how was the Gore administration?
Do you think more or like Cheney?
I would say that there's probably more chaos than regimented.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, that would be my assumption. And I only serve 2 families.
Okay. That's all you have to compare. Yeah.
But I've heard stories of previous administrations, and even post my leaving, I stayed in contact with individuals that worked for the Pences, that worked for the Harris family. And so, again, it doesn't matter if there's a D or an R behind their name.
Right.
There's differences. And it doesn't matter if you're regimented or chaotic. These private service professionals that are behind the scenes that are serving these families do a phenomenal job taking care of the family. So,
I would love if the people behind the scenes not caring about whether there's a D or an R and doing their job with such high integrity and to such an exceptional level would write a book for the United
funny.
States
You should say
right
that.
now.
I've been asking him for years to
teach all Americans to maintain high standards and deliver top quality everything, relationships, performances, what have you, despite the fact that, their neighbor is a D and they're an R. I would love to see that book.
Yeah,
no, it's great.
Colleen
it's really great.
Typically pushes me, because I try to be somewhat politically correct when I discuss this, because, I don't want to be negative towards any particular person or party. But, I serve 2 grandpas.
Right.
They love their grandkids identical.
Yep.
So I don't want to get lost in that. They were 2 dads, and I got to see that side of it. So, the politics may have been different, and the way that they operated, their daily routine may have been different, but they were still dads and grandpas. And that's like the special stuff that you get to see behind the scenes. And husbands, I don't want to discard that either. And so it was a unique opportunity to serve these families, and different, though the same. And it's pretty neat.
All right, how'd Cheney take his coffee?
So Cheney was, if I remember, was black. Mrs. Cheney liked creamer.
Starbucks.
Yes, it was Starbucks, Pike's Place.
Place.
Yeah. Pike's Place, okay. And how did Biden, did he drink coffee?
Not so much.
He wasn't a coffee drinker,
yeah.
okay.
He would, but, it was just sipping. There was no, large consumptions of caffeine at their ages. Decaf, there was a lot of decaf that would come through, depending on the time of day. Meals, Cheney was kind of your traditional steak and potato kind of guy.
He's a cowboy, of course he is.
Wyoming kind of cowboy-esque. And then the Biden family, they were more.
You need steak and potatoes to work up that strength when you're going to shoot
somebody. Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. We're not
I
going
knew that was
there.
coming.
We're
Oh, goodness.
not going there.
No.
Just pretend that wasn't even.
Yeah, no, that story is a fascinating story. I served with folks that were
Can you
part of
not?
that, and it was.
Unless you would like to expand on
Yeah,
it, then go
yeah.
right ahead.
It was. I wasn't there when that happened, but I heard it was a point of chaos and contention. So, again, it doesn't matter if there's a D or R. There's always going to.
It doesn't.
There's going to be chaos when you're serving folks, and so.
Were there any big surprises?
Surprises? Not
Anything happened? You were
Nothing.
like,
Nothing surprising.
bigger than that.
other than someone being shot?
Yeah.
Should we tell the story? I mean, what's the story behind
Yeah, so there's a story.
those people that don't know?
For those that don't know, you can Google it, Wikipedia. There's a story of Vice President Cheney.
We don't have to. We have Donnie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
We have the truth here.
So again, I was not there. I was not part of the administration, so I want to put that up, disclaimer. But my understanding is that there was a trip between Vice President Cheney and some colleagues, some friends of his, and a bird hunting trip out in the Midwest. I guess that's where Colorado or Wyoming is. I think that's where it was. And there was a hunting accident where Vice President Dick Cheney accidentally shot a friend of his in the face with some bird shot. So the gentleman lived, and it's chaos, as you can imagine. The second most powerful person in the United States just pulled a trigger at his friend's face. And so,
actually, I didn't even realize it was. That certainly makes it a lot less funny. Not that it's ever funny, I guess, when someone gets shot accidentally, but I didn't realize it was his face. I thought he got, something in the
backside.
glutes and the backside.
Right.
So
No,
that's
it was,
that's pretty scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty scary. And so, and you have to imagine, okay, so the vice president wants to go on a hunting trip. Well, hunting involves stalking not a lot of people, right? So now we have to take our normally large amount of people, and that has to get dwindled down to achieve his goal of going hunting.
Yeah.
And so now you have an emergency happen. Well, everybody's not there.
Right.
Right.
Because he's hunting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Just the pure innocence of hunting and what that entails. And so, as you can imagine, radios are going off and chatter, and then you're kicked into high gear to take care of his colleague. So I forget the gentleman's name, so I do apologize. But yeah, that was before my time, but the story still remains, and it still remains today, even years later. So you can look that up. That actually happened. Your vice president of the United States shot his friend in the face.
Oh, well, that was unfortunate, and thank you for
I'm actually surprised with hunting that accidents don't happen more
Often.
often.
Right.
I mean,
right.
All right, I have a couple of questions. One that I want to ask you, Donnie, is what did you learn about leadership, grace under pressure, and discretion from working so closely with some of the most powerful people in the country?
Man, I was taking a drink of water, and so I apologize. I zoned out. So
That's okay. Would you like me to repeat?
Yes, please.
What did you learn about leadership, grace under pressure, and discretion from working so closely with some of the most powerful people in the country?
Leadership. So I'll kind of take these apart one by one if I could. So leadership, what I learned was in every situation, it's going to require someone to make that first step, whether that's that first comment, that first question, that first injection of attention. And so if you as a solid leader can step into that space, the vice president should never go on stage with a stain on his shirt. And so it does take a unique individual to step into that vulnerable, like he's seconds, and there's press and there's everything going on. And you have seconds to make the decision of, do I allow my boss to go on stage with the stain on his shirt? And it takes a pretty strong leader to step into that, to call it out, to help facilitate the changing of the shirt and everything like that. So that, and then I guess grace under pressure was the other one. Mm-hmm. And again, you're doing that for that specific scenario. You're doing that with compassion and empathy. Hey, sir, if you don't mind, let's just step over here. Sir, you got something on your collar. This is what it looks like. Do you mind? Do you want to change it? And let him make that decision, or her at this point. So it was, you're stepping into an awkward position. You're smiling. Your body language suggests that I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you, truly. And if you would like that, that's okay. And then you have to be okay with the decisions. Mm-hmm. Are you stepping into the restroom to assist your principal to get him podium ready? And then what was the last one? Discretion. Maybe I failed at this because now I'm talking about it. But stuff like this happens, and then you have to go home, and you can't discuss what happens at work, or just knowing that what you did was important, and whether you're serving a military or a government official, or if you're in this area and you're serving, a high net worth individual here in the Sarasota region, like your principles, being discreet around your principles is paramount. Their life is intimate. The stories, the laughter, the jokes that they still tell to their grandkids, like, you can't take that home and share that on social media. Like, you have to, step away, and like, that was a really unique moment, seeing, grandpa hang out with the grandkids, or see husband engage with a wife and, joke about some silly stuff. So discretion is paramount.
And I think you mentioned to me when we first met that Biden was very warm and welcoming and would invite you into the family a little bit, whereas Cheney was a little more proper.
Yes. So the Cheneys, they were, proper would probably be the term that I would use. They they knew who you were, you knew who they were in that relationship. That
it was kind of a know your place.
Know your place. Yeah.
That was it.
And whereas the Bidens, they came with like arms wide open, like everybody, and hugging and have dinner with us. Even though you just cooked them dinner, they want you to sit down and enjoy it with them.
I think that almost might be harder.
Yeah,
it was hard.
It was very hard.
Because then you're always a small slip away from crossing over to being too close. Me personally, I mean, I would just fail at the job entirely. But
well,
I would,
fold a sheet.
for me,
I don't think you would.
and that's not the only thing I can't do. I would find it easier to know my place and know this is my role and this. I would find it much easier to serve a Cheney type mentality than a Biden mentality.
Right. Well, I got to elaborate on that because with both families, there were times where they would invite the naval enlisted aides and their families to come over to the house and have a barbecue or a cookout around the pool. And so we, of course, would bring our, three little blonde, tow-headed boys in order. And for Cheneys, it was proper. We did this. And no, you're not going to run around the pool. You're going to hold my hand. You're going to be appropriate. But then when we were over with the Bidens, it was, oh, come inside. Let the boys run around. And so you have, at the time, Vice President Biden saying, oh, it's fine. And I'm sitting there saying, sir, it's not fine. My son is not going to break your priceless artifact that is sitting here that could probably never be replicated. He's like, oh, it's just stuff. Oh, it's just stuff. We'll replace it. Who cares? I let my kids do this all the time. And so you're sitting there thinking, do I? Don't I? Do I? Don't I?
Yeah.
Because he wants your kids to run free.
Yeah.
Do I want my kids to run free? Absolutely not. So there was a little bit of that, but that just goes to show how open and welcoming they were. It was, hey, have a drink, have this, just relax. You work too hard, sit down and enjoy time with us. So they really desired that intimacy with the people who were serving them on a very intimate level, which was really appreciated.
And so as you can tell, just from her interactions, she got to experience both from the family side. So if you were a member and you're getting brought in to serve, you didn't experience the Cheneys. Maybe you came in at the very, very last and you got brought up to speed with standards and, expectations and all that stuff. But now your first family that you're serving are the Bidens, but now you're transitioning to Pences?
The Pences were next.
Maybe the Pences would have been a Cheney type personality. So now
from what we heard, it was more of a Cheney type personality.
Hey, boss. Hey, Mrs. Maybe you went from like a loving, not maybe a little bit
more
informal, open arms to maybe a little bit more structured. Yeah.
I think that's harder to change. I think it's harder to go back to being conformed and disciplined when you've been let loose.
Totally agree.
Especially for 8 years.
So I know some colleagues that have experienced both from like, the structured Cheneys and now being invited into the warm arms and embracing and informal settings of the Bidens. And then I'm also really familiar with individuals that served the Bidens first, and then they transitioned to another family, and it was like, oh, she's really hard. I'm like, well, she's just not
different,
informal.
Very different.
Why did you leave? Was it just your time was up? Or?
Well,
no, I asked him to.
Okay.
It's me or the job.
Oh, okay.
So I went into this, I went into the Navy believing that I could do the 20 years and get out and retire and do that whole spiel. But once I got in and once the administration changed and I was traveling and we got down to 4 members and why are you traveling all the time? Why can't you stay home? Secret Service gets in trouble in Colombia. I know all those guys. You must have been a part of that sex scandal and everything else. Like, so you start getting casted by your spouse as participating in all these things that are going on in the workplace.
Right.
And it's like, no, but I can, like, all that
Guilt
stuff.
by association.
Exactly.
Well, and that was just it because to his level of discretion, he can't come home and share all of these things. So I only see the news clips. There's 3 sides of the story, right? And so he would come home, but he can't really share too much about it. And so I think he took a silent beating from me for a little while, but that did not help our relationship. And we got to the point of, I understand that, if the Navy wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one in your sea bag. Yeah. But we met after, and we've grown a beautiful family together, and we have goals. And at this point, you are gone all the time. It was like a full-on deployment. Even when he was in Iraq, he went over to Iraq with the Biden administration right after they had come into office, and that's when Camp Freedom was bombed. And I had no communication with him, so I'm only seeing what's happening on the news. So when you go through a lot of stresses like that, they become unnecessary triggers. And when you're trying to stay at home and keep the house and keep the faith and keep the kids in line, and you have no help from your partner it's not like I chose to be a single mom and leave you and do my own thing. We're in a marriage. We're here to work this out together. And we were just constantly butting heads, and it was an issue. So we got to the point of, I don't know that I can stay married to you and keep doing this if you're going to keep serving the Biden administration at this point, because I know that in the beginning it was, we're going to go around and shake everybody's hand and do meet and greets, but that continued for years. Yeah. And the schedule always changed. I remember times where he would come, the Biden's personal residence was in Wilmington, Delaware, and he would come home and say, hey, I'm going to Delaware for the weekend to open up their personal residence. So he'd pack up the government van, take all of their suitcases, and he would spend 3 hours in rush hour to get up and open up the residence. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll see you on Sunday night or Monday. And for him to get a call 30 minutes later saying, I changed my mind, I'm not coming this weekend. Mm-hmm. And so now he has to pack everything back up and come back down. So he gets home at 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm, in bed asleep. Well, this is great. I'm excited. I'm going to get to see him. No, only for 5 a.m. to roll around for him to be told, we changed our minds. We're actually going back up. Oh. So here we go again. Yeah. This was years of our marriage. He only served him for 3 years because he was in that position for 5 total. But that was about all that I could take. And I thought, our boys never see you. I didn't have brothers growing up, so I don't even know how to raise boys. I'm trying to figure this out. They need their dad. They don't just need mom.
And they need military marriages are difficult.
They're very difficult, and not very many of them survive.
Right. Yeah, and so we're kind of up against that stigma, that pressure of if we want this, everybody around me has already been divorced or in the process of getting divorced or single, and they're living this crazy life. And so I really I had very few peers, colleagues that were solid guys that I could kind of trust or
that were still married, or let alone that had kids. I think at the time we were the only ones with children still in house. Yeah. Most people didn't have kids at all. So it's really ideal. It's an ideal role for somebody who's single or who doesn't need to be at home raising a family.
Yes.
And then what
happens after? 2012, I stepped away from serving the vice president. And as you can imagine, and from your own maybe questions from your family. It's like, once you separate from the military, like there's a sense of like, maybe what do I do with my life? And so I went through that period.
It was a hard cut at that point, Lauren. He didn't get a new duty station. It was, hey, I've renewed, I'm getting out at the 10-year mark, and I have to walk away. So his last day serving in the military was serving the Biden administration, and then he left so that we could try and figure out civilian life together,
and
which was a challenge.
It was kind of long story, but short story is we picked the Nashville area because my job or my goal was to serve the affluent individuals of the Nashville community. So these were, your singer-songwriters and different celebrities and stuff like that. So I got there, I had some connections. So again, may have been lucky, but made some connections. I got interviewed, talked to a couple of families, but again, I'm still a young guy. A lot of these families have staff that have been with them for years, and it's just like, hey, you could probably do a lot better job, but we're kind of committed to, this housekeeper, that housekeeper, and so I'm like, okay. So I got a job at a hotel, and I was working third shift, cleaning toilets and walking security, and as you can imagine, I literally went from flying on Air Force 2. In style, suit and tie, to now I am in downtown Nashville cleaning up college kid puke. And
it was humbling.
What am I doing in my life? And so, for years I've been chasing this dream of like getting back to like serving at such a high level. Yes, I've had jobs and roles in which I would elevate to a higher level of service, whether it was, customer service or various other things that I've done through the years. But now I'm like, this passion is not going away. And when I had the opportunity this year to launch Modern Day Butler, and it's just been an amazing opportunity to meet folks like yourself. And
talk about Modern Day Butler. We want to hear about Modern Day Butler. I love the name.
We're getting close to having to wrap up, so yes, please.
Yeah.
So the Modern Day Butler is again, hopefully from my story, you can tell that I'm really passionate about serving folks at a very high level, and it was just this desire to be in this Sarasota marketplace, Tampa to Naples, if there's travel involved, but to serve families at a very, very high level. And whether that's, on a very transactional basis of a project or an event, and you want my services, I will come in, provide that service for you. Or if it's a long-term relationship, retainer type relationship where I'm managing your home, that's where I can come in and, oversee if you have staff, if you need staff. Again, it's kind of that a la carte, having those conversations with the clients, with the homeowners, and just seeing what they need and providing that service at a very, very high level, and not be, like I wouldn't want an unmarked vehicle pull up to your property and you think it's the painter, and then this guy gets out and he doesn't have a uniform on and he's in an unmarked car. Like that to me invites so many different things of like, man, if you're a single, if your husband's traveling and you're at home with the kids and you've got this guy coming, like I would like to be that first level filter to where I'm like, okay, it needs to be a marked vehicle. The guy needs to be in a uniform. He needs to, walk the walk, talk the talk. Again, protect you as a family. And that's my job as a butler. If, maybe that's the physical security standpoint, maybe it's the culinary standpoint, maybe it's just the eye for details of cleanliness.
But it's pretty remarkable that you have it all.
Well, thank you.
So you're not choosing the security or the eye for detail or the culinary side of it. Right. You can provide it all.
Yeah.
Full service.
Yeah. Full service, white glove service. And that's my goal, is to elevate the service in this region, but also, from whether that's through just conversations and meeting people and just helping out the community to raise the bar of service in this region.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right, I'm going to give you guys a chance to brag on each other. Let's start with you, Colleen. What's one thing you do at home that the other one secretly appreciates?
Oh,
even if they don't always say it out loud.
supporting my husband and being his biggest cheerleader, even in a time where he's building a business, I know is really key to him. He appreciates that. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things, is just trying to be cognizant of what his needs are for that and delivering that, because I also have a full-time business that I'm running. And so sometimes I think I'm a workhorse. I know he's a workhorse. We can get so excited about our passions and the businesses that we own that we might neglect what the other's need is. And so I know that he really appreciates when I cheerlead him, especially in moments where he doesn't feel like he's doing the best that he can. You know, me as his wife coming along and saying, "You've got this, you're crushing it. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being the leader of our family." You know, I mean, I think that does it for him at that point.
And let's just say Colleen is a rock star realtor with EXP Realty, correct?
Thank you. That's right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I love what I do.
You've been doing that here?
I'm entering my 7th year of real estate, 4th year down here in Florida. I started in North Carolina. We were in the Charlotte market at the time. Yeah. And God called me into real estate. I didn't even know what equity was. I didn't even watch HGTV. I didn't care anything for what houses looked like. I was all into fashion and makeup and everything else. And he called me into it. So I got into it, and I absolutely see why he brought me here. I love to serve people. I love creating those memories and those lifetime experiences. I work a lot with first-time homebuyers. I work a lot with sellers. And to date, I've sold over $55 million in real estate and helped over 170 different families. I love what I do. It's so much fun.
You collaborate a lot.
We do.
There's a lot of overlap there.
There is a lot of overlap. We had actually done a Brokers Open about a month ago with another EXP team in here in the Sarasota area at one of their luxury listings on Siesta Key. And it was great because we created this experience where we had the modern day Butler there, and we had a bartender, and we had a musician, and we had people in to help facilitate in different aspects, but really create this experience of what it's like to live in a property like this and what it could look like to be served in that capacity. So we do work very well together, and it's really a big blessing.
Yeah. All right, your turn, Donnie.
Gosh. So, what Colleen said about, just being the cheerleader is a huge help. So, if you are a silent cheerleader, I would encourage you to be a vocal cheerleader. Mm-hmm. But for me, it is the way that she's, if you guys saw her on camera, she's infectious. She smiles. Her energy is contagious. And just when she is operating at this tempo, it is so infectious. And it's like, okay, I can do this. I can continue this. So just the way that Colleen just shows up each and every day with the smile, with the personality that she has, with this energy level of just like optimism, because I initially started out in our relationship as the eternal pessimist, negativity.
He was
an Eeyore. If those of you that know,
he was Eeyore.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
I was
100%.
the Eeyore character for a long time, and eventually her positivity won me over. And so just the way that she shows up each and every day with a smile and lip gloss and everything shimmers and sparkles with her.
Always. You can't have too much glitter and sparkle.
No,
Thank you.
Can't. Girly girl.
My hairdresser says that. She says, "Oh, I know Colleen was here. Your glitter's all over my chair." You're welcome.
Yeah. If you guys could host a dream dinner party with anyone, living or deceased, who would be at your table and who would be in charge of the menu?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. This is probably so cliche, but I am walking through chronological reading of the Bible right now. So I'm just going to say Jesus. I want Jesus at my table. I have so many questions to ask. I just want to know. Yeah. So I know.
Jesus is at the head of the table.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so yes,
okay,
that's
he's
me
at
right
your
now.
Table. Yeah. And what would be on the menu?
Oh, I don't really like fish. I mean, I like fish, but
No fish and loaves.
No, it would definitely be wine. He turned water into wine. So wine. I like steak. I love meat. So I would definitely be a nice little meat and salad, some sides.
I would probably be really concerned with how the table is set and the noise coming from the kitchen. So if I was truly able to relax and enjoy that intimate space, I would probably, oh gosh,
that's funny.
There are so many people that I would love to just engage with. Whether it's Jesus from the Christian background, right now, having any of my main podcast hosts around Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. I mean, it's just an incredible human being to listen to. there's so many. Will Guidara with Unreasonable Hospitality, just the way he speaks and the magic that he has in his eyes about serving people and leading teams to serve people well would be an amazing opportunity. And our dinner would probably be really simple, probably like just a petite filet mignon, just something, because it would be about the conversation, not necessarily about the food for me. Like the food is good, but let's just try to get through it as quickly as possible, and then let's get back to conversing. So, yeah.
I could see that being an all-nighter.
Yeah. I can see that being too.
Right.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Another person, living, John Maxwell, I'm all about. Oh, yeah. I am fascinated. He's great. So
he's great,
I think that'd be it.
Yeah, you've got some good people at your table. Can we come?
Yes. Always, yes, please, always. Please. And we need matching trucker hats, Lauren.
Right? Of course.
I love that.
Lauren has her 11/11 trucker hat on again.
I love that.
Make a wish.
All right, and the final question. We've had so much fun today. I hate to end. I still have so many more questions, but the final one we ask every guest is, what advice would you give your younger selves? Colleen, you start us off.
I would say to find yourself, be secure and confident in yourself, and learn how to communicate properly. I think back to our past, and there were, we went through 13 years of what seemed like contention in our marriage because I was very insecure and we did not communicate. So, now that I'm breaching 40, you learn so much, and hindsight is everything, but really just knowing, where does my security, where does my confidence come from? And then knowing enough to step out of my own way and just show that, I think just helps you lead, because people follow the confident leader, not the competent leader. So being able to have that, I think, would have helped me through a lot of things.
Right. So. People follow the confident leader, not the competent.
That's exactly right.
Leader.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that.
For me, if I was to go back in history and talk to probably that 10-year-old version of myself, I would just say, you are loved, you are cared for, and you will do amazing things with your life. Don't get stuck on all the drama. Don't get stuck on who doesn't love you. Just know that you will be loved, and I think that would create, to Colleen's point, a really confident individual.
And it all starts with love of self, right?
It does,
wow. Yes, it does.
Yeah. It starts with love of self. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
And if people want to get in touch with you, Donnie, how do they get in touch with Modern Day Butler?
My website's moderndaybutler.com, Donnie at the Modern Day Butler. I'm on social media. Colleen's on social media quite a bit, so you could reach me through her channels if need be.
All right. And Colleen, how do we reach you?
Instagram is my favorite platform. You can find me at the Colleen Martens. And then, of course, my website is colleenmartens.com.
All right. And we'll put all that information on our podcast.
Yes, we will.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.